Beloved ones, I am Michael, the great Archangel of courage and clarity, stepping now into the landscape of collective relations to offer this message of community defense. The healing of social fractures does not belong solely to leaders, institutions, or movements. It belongs to each person whose field carries light, intention, and sovereignty. Communities are fracturing under stress, polarization, betrayal, mistrust, disconnection, wounding. You may feel the rupture in your neighborhood, in your country, in your circle. This is not a call to arms in the old sense, but to the architecture of defense that heals rather than wounds, a defense grounded in clarity, dignity, accountability, boundary, bridge, and love. To defend community is not to fight against others but to stand for new relational geometry. You, as a light bearer, are asked to anchor that geometry with presence, not force. First, understand that fractures in community are not always external problems, they mirror internal fractures. Fear, projection, identity wounds, unhealed trauma, these shape how we blame, react, withdraw. To defend community, you must first defend your field. When your interior is fragmented, your presence adds to the stress. Begin by healing your inner architecture, boundary, clarity, compassion, sovereignty. Only when your vessels are sound can your presence serve the collective without becoming a fracture node yourself. Having fortified inner field, you begin to extend defense into relational reality. The first gesture is vigilant listening. When people hurt, they speak in shards, accusation, demand, reactivity. Too often we respond in defense. Instead, posture your presence to listen, not to agree with distortion, but to hold space so that the deeper wound beneath the words may be seen. Listen for what underlies the blame, fear, grief, misunderstanding. When someone knows they are heard before corrected, the fissure softens. The energy shifts. This is one of your key points of intervention. Next, speak with clarity, not volume. Words in fissure zones are like sharp tools, misaligned tone cuts deeper. Practice speech from center. I see you. I hear you. This is important. This is where I differ. Hold your border firmly, but softly. Let your voice convey respect even while disagreement arises. You are not there to win, but to station possibility. If you push to correct others, you may inflame. If you only appease, you lose integrity. You calibrate your phrase so it carries field, not friction. You must also become a bridge kahuna, someone who sits between tendencies, holds both sides of dissonance, and reframes polarity into possibility. In moments of division, you help others translate. You and I are carrying pain. Here is what is shared underneath. Here is how we may restore safety. You are mediator not in subservience, but from strength. You do not fold your convictions but invite others to remember the thread of belonging beneath difference. Defense also demands boundary diplomacy. Some people cannot or will not meet your clarity. You must know when to step aside from a conversation, to withdraw your presence, to refuse to be baited. That withdrawal is not defeat, it is respect for your field. You defend the space you hold for hope rather than let your heart become battleground. You may re-enter later. But until clarity returns, your absence may preserve rather than fracture. You carry shields of mutual accountability. In community, norms fray when people betray trust. You may offer covenantal repair. I uphold respect here. If lines are crossed, we must name, apologize, and realign. Let repair rituals anchor that defense. The community may forgive, but not forget, and re-establish coherence. In such repair you show how dignity may coexist with accountability. As tensions escalate, your field becomes refuge. Even when you do not speak, your presence becomes magnet for coherence. People sense calm when you do not respond to polarization, but radiate steady restraint. You become the anchor, less voice, more center. That kind of defense is silent power, undergirding the more visible efforts. You must also carry healing modalities in your kit, reframing group narratives, naming wounds behind defense, fear of abandonment, betrayal, projection, instituting practices of regeneration, circles of reconciliation, listening nights, truth-sharing forums, coded sovereign space. You help communities become less reactive and more generative. That becomes an architecture of defense rather than perpetual battle. Because social fractures often invoke identity injury, your approach must include humility, cultural humility, admission of error. You may have participated in the old wounds. Own your part. That admission softens others' reactivity. When you lead by example, saying "I was wrong, I seek repair," you model courage. That kind of defense invites collective returning, not collective collapse. You must also guard against overprotection turning into control. Community defense is not about policing others' boundaries or opinions. It is about curating space where integrity breeds possibility. You do not compel unity, you defend the container in which freedom and coherence may coexist. Let your defense be shaped by trust, not fear. Let your heart say, "I hold this space for belonging, not mastery." That is the guard of true community. As you inhabit this role, tests will come: betrayal, censure, misunderstanding, backlash. You must rely on your sovereign field to sustain clarity under slander. You may have to walk from structures that refuse new geometry. Do not shrink the light to appease. Remember, defense is not absence of momentum, but posture of restraint that preserves future health. Energy logistics matter. Community defense is heavy work. You must tend your vessel, renew your boundaries, rest your field. You cannot serve perpetually from depletion. Regeneration protocols, field clearing, retreat, counsel, these are your backlands. Let your presence last, not burn out. Remember that community is fractal, what you hold locally echoes upward. Your care for neighborhood, family, small circles, shows up in the larger field. You become an attractor for coherence at scale. Do not dismiss small circles as insignificant, they are the training ground for grand integrity. You must propagate the values of both strength and softness, firmness in boundary, kindness in speech, criticality in love, loyalty to higher truth. Many defenses swing harsh, others swing passive. You hold balance. That balance is what reweaves trust. Trust cannot rebuild with harshness. Trust rebuilds where people are courageous, vulnerable, and consistent. In time, your consistency becomes proof. Here is one who does not fracture when storms press. That is leadership by example. You do not tell, you embody. Others who yearn for coherence will align. The community reshapes slowly, not by decree but by daily fidelity, small acts of defense, honoring others, refusing distortion, repairing rupture, resurrecting the possibility of belonging. That is your service. Beloved, I call you to step into this path, not to become enforcer, not to lead from ego, but to station light in community, to defend possibility, to hold the fractures in your bones so that new geometry may be born. You are not alone. I stand by your edge. Let your clarity become field. May your heart defend, may your presence heal, may your faith persist.